Did I mention this is my first Teams community? All right, so okay. So we just started recording. Just want to welcome everybody to the first meeting of what we're calling Texans for Productivity. And that's the name of our Teams community. And the whole goal of this is to really support each other in rolling out Teams and the why and the how behind that. As you'll see as we go through later and we really talk about what we're going to do in the months, the tagline I wanted to use and I used is by the people, for the people. So if that rings a bell with anybody. The whole idea behind this is it's for you guys, it's for the betterment of the state agencies, and it is to help you use the software you're already paying for. And so we're going to show this video that I think sort of really states the problem quite elegantly about why we would want to use something like Teams.
Business practices that refuse to die. Number 44, email trees. Let's keep this simple. You need to make a decision, but need the input from 4 team. Draft an email and send it to the team. Person number 1 replies to all, so does person number 2. But 3 and 4 only reply back to you. In addition, unbeknownst to you, person number 4 emails person number 5 who thinks they should have a say in the decision as well. Person number 5 replies to everyone. You gather all the feedback and send a synopsis back out to everyone. You also receive emails from persons number 1 and 2 asking why number 5 was included in on the discussion. You reply back to them that, although not ideal, it'll be okay. Person number 5 also forwarded the email to person number 6, who at this time also replied to all, but didn't get the last email. So to include her, you forward her the last email and CC everyone else just to let them know that person number 6 was in on the discussion now too. You now email everyone with the final decision and want their buy-in. Person number 6 asks for one small change. You agree, make the change, and email everyone again for an agreement. Everyone emails you that they agree. Madness. 61 emails have been sent to make one decision. That certainly is not collaboration at its finest. How can we avoid this in the future? Instead of sending an email, you ask your question in a collaborative environment. Everyone responds and reads each other's responses and suggests that person number 5 and 6 be invited, which you do. They too read the thread, add their 2 bits, and everyone is on the same page. You make the final decision. Person number 6 adds a change. You revise, and everyone buys off. Done. Now think about how much time your team saved by using the collaborative space. Multiply that by the number of in-depth email conversations you have in a day, and you can see the savings. Plus, the conversation is in one place. You can easily find it again if you need to refer to it later, and has saved your team a ton of email frustration, which always makes your team happier. Now raise your hand if you think your team could have spent those hours doing something more valuable. So, what are you going to do about it?
So that video seems like it was a Microsoft Teams video, right? That video is 6 years old, and it was actually for an IBM collaboration product that I don't think exists anymore. But this is not a new problem. Can anybody relate with the problem of the 44 emails to get one decision? And we used to, well, when I was at Microsoft before, someone would send an email to the company and someone would reply to all. And then someone would reply to all and said, hey, you just replied to all. And then someone would say, stop replying to all. You're sending out hundreds of thousands of emails. And literally people would go back and forth like this. And I'm like, oh my God, stop the insanity. So Microsoft just released, and you may have seen them. I think they had one on the Super Bowl, but this is actually a Microsoft Teams video. It's a commercial rather, and it's a little 30-second commercial. So we'll watch that, and then we're gonna like really dig in on the meat here. I like this.
The conference room, the speakerphone, the missing files, not in the room, then you're not in the know. Well, this has been nice, but can we not? How about we invite everyone you work with to work together? Be seen, be heard, be there when you're not. share your files and your opinion, and maybe even a happy little free guide. You're ready to unleash the power of your team. Open Teams.
So there's a lot of interest in teams. I mean, I really, I'm humbled at the amount of people that responded to this and that wanted to join this community and be part of this. There's, when I looked at the list of registrants for this, we have innovation experts, we have small agencies, we have large agencies, we have IT analysts, we have training people, we have people that run the Microsoft contract for agencies. We have data intelligence people. We have ISOs and security people. So Teams really hits a very broad group of individuals inside of each agency. And whether you have all those roles or not, there is a lot of people in each agency, and not to mention the actual end users who want to use Teams who are interested in Teams. And so I had the pleasure of working with Teacher Retirement System in my previous job. And they were an early adopter for Teams. And so I'm going to tell a little story about kind of the why behind this. So this book, if you haven't ever seen it, it's from Simon Sinek. It's called Start With Why. And the whole premise behind Start With Why is that if we first really seek as an organization or a department or a group to understand what our motivation is, what is our why, then the what and the how can follow after that. And Simon Sinek kind of coined this, he calls this the golden circle. And so in working with Teacher Retirement System, their why is they have $167 billion, something along that line, and they need to get a better return on investment so that their fund can do better for the teachers. And they have 13 different asset categories. That means 13 different kinds of things they buy. And when you're buying billions of dollars of stuff, you move markets. And they needed to have their global group of investors be able to collaborate more effectively, get more real-time information, not have to, from a Starbucks, open up their laptop, log into a VPN, then log into their virtual desktop so they could get to their email. They needed a better way to work. And so we took them through this process called the Digital Workplace Strategy and really got to their why is two things. We need to enable our employees to work from anywhere on any device, anytime. That's like so buzzy. I mean, that's like so 5 years ago, but that's what they needed to do. And that's what we all need to do. And they needed to increase their return on investment. And so with that as the why, we then sought to find the what and the how. The what was Microsoft Teams. But when we took their users through a process of business conversations about what do you need to do for your business? How do you work today? What are the things that are really easy? What are the things that are really hard? What we uncovered was a whole set of business requirements and ways that things were sticky and ways that we could optimize that had nothing to do with technology. And we kind of knew this going in, that Teams was going to be the answer. It's like one of those things where you take the test and you know what the answer is, but we needed the business community to be heard and to be part of that discussion so that when we came back to them with a solution, it was tailored to their needs as a business community and some optimization, some workflows and some things along that line. But when Teams rolled out, it wasn't what is IT doing to us, it is what is IT doing for us. And it was, this is exactly what we talked about. This is exactly what we wanted. And so they went from 80 people using Teams in October of 2018 to they're about 1,000 people. And they have just shy, at the last report that I saw, of 90% adoption. And I don't mean like they used it once. I mean, they use it every day. They use it all day. They share files. They create meetings. They record meetings. They create community. They co-author documents and literally use just about every feature that Teams has. Yeah, and that's Teresa Granger. She's one of my favorite people. She works at TRS. So figuring out your why is a big part because the what and the how are actually not that hard. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not rocket surgery. It's rolling out software. But when you take into account the why, then the what and the how make more sense. And so for me, and this is just me, Michael Kennedy, I'm a Texan, I'm a taxpayer. I have a son who has special needs. And so helping organizations like Health and Human Services operate more efficiently and more effectively to help the constituents of the state of Texas, me, my son, that's important. And I think all of us really feel that way, as if we could transform the way we work and have a more modern work experience and work more efficiently and be more successful with our programs for our constituents and bring in a younger generation who would be excited about using the technology because they all think with their thumbs, then we might be able to accomplish some really cool things. And so this community is really going to be about figuring out whys and working with you all to figure out whys and then helping you with the what and the how. And so when I had the opportunity to interview for this job and come back to Microsoft, one of the things that I observed was that it wasn't for lack of resources that people weren't adopting Teams. It was actually sort of quite the opposite. It was just too much stuff. There was too many features. There was too many options. There was too many places you could go to learn about it or train on it, but it was like all over the place. And the cool thing is that every state agency, and I apologize, I know we have some people from the education sector here. We have a gentleman here from the University of Texas system. I know we have some people that are here that are not state agencies, but I know also the UT system has the full package. They own all of these capabilities, and every state agency owns all the capabilities we're going to be talking about. So the goal was, is there a way that we can organize all this stuff and make it more accessible, easier to approach, easier to consume, and easier to be successful? And so I worked with some of the people that have been in my role for years, and it's like, okay, where's this, where's that? And everybody was super generous, and because we use Teams and we have a team, and we have this community of people that do my role, and they really helped me to bring together a lot of resources. And so what we did is we came up with this idea called STAART for Teams. Now, this is an eye chart, and I'm going to read it to you, which is like the absolute no-no of public speaking and slideware. But there's a reason I'm going to read it to you, because I want to fill in some of the gaps. So I'm going to back up a little bit so I can see this. So START for Teams stands for the State of Texas Adoption and Architecture Reference Template, START for Teams. And the idea is that it's a reference architecture governance framework, for those of you that love governance, and implementation recommendations. And the idea behind it is to simplify the process of adopting Microsoft Teams, what we're all here for, by engaging not just IT, but the business groups, as I spoke about, that we like the work we did with Teacher Retirement System, to identify transformation priorities. So what would this mean to them? How could we transform the way they work? How could they work more efficiently using the tools that you guys already own? Training end users, which is a big task. We want to make sure people know how to use it when we turn it on. And provide post-implementation support. So it's not just enough to turn it on and get it working, but after you turn it on, you go right up here. After you turn it on, you get it working, new stuff is coming out. And I don't know if you noticed, but Microsoft is cranking out new features on an alarming rate for those of you who are in IT. And so every 2 weeks, it seems like some new thing pops up and, hey, look, it's just there. So post-implementation support is really important. Now, the other cool thing about state agencies is I think all of you, or almost all of you, have a unified support contract. And that means that you have ongoing support. It's just a way, how do you optimize the usage of that? And so all of this has a comprehensive reference template, okay? A template's an approach to doing this, which organizes and simplifies key Microsoft Teams resources. Okay, you don't need access to all of them, just the ones you need, right? Included with your Office 365 subscription. I've been coached. Don't ever call it free. It's included with your subscription. So all of this stuff is included with your subscription and your unified support contract. So we're going to enhance that ability with some other supportive technologies that you also already own to make it easier to create team sites, configure it, and manage it. And that's really important for IT to make sure that this thing doesn't go all Wild West on it, is what some people call it, where everybody's creating team sites, they're calling them whatever they want. They're calling them things that you probably shouldn't call things on a corporate network. And so, I can't imagine that happening, but it does. And all of this is going to be supported by best practices guidance for either IT. If the IT, a lot of IT departments just don't have the staff or the training to be able to do this, and they don't have the bandwidth to go out and learn it. And so there are. This is available to the IT groups but it's also going to be supported by DIR approved vendors in the vendor community and the partner community who know how to do this and have done these projects before. So a lot of words, but that's what the goal, aspirational goal of STAART for teams is. And so what we've done is really look at kind of the why behind this is we got more collaboration, and that's not news to anybody. People work twice as many teams, spend 50% more time collaborating, and all the videos, everything says that. Internal, external, and remote, it's really hard to share files and work with people that are outside of your network, outside of your organization. And so, but there's a requirement to do that, whether that's inter-agency collaboration or even potentially working with your constituents. And then the diverse workforce. For the first time ever, and you know, quote things you've probably heard before, we have 5 generations in the workforce. 50% of state employees, I understand, are eligible for retirement, approximately. Okay, so I got a lot of silver hair. There's a lot more people with a lot of silver hair that have been working at state agencies for 20 plus years, and they can leave whenever they want. And they're going to take all that knowledge that's in their head, or maybe in a document in a file share version 17 in a nested folder, and they're going to take it with them. I was working on a project one time around application modernization. We were interviewing application owners. And so visited with an application owner. They said, I'm the application owner. It's like, well, that's what it says on the piece of paper. And they said, I've never even seen the application. I said, well, okay. Well, do you know? Probably don't. Is that HIPAA application, does it contain HIPAA data? So health information data that's protected by the HIPAA Act. Now, I don't know. Well, who wrote the application? Or who knew about the application? Well, Becky did. But Becky retired about 5 years ago, and unfortunately, she died. So nobody knows about this application. Literally nobody knows about this application. And so if we, with this diverse workforce, and we're trying to bring young people in, and we have these older people who have all this knowledge, if we had a tool that could gather some of that knowledge and keep it in a system that you could actually go back and find it again, that could solve a lot of challenges. When I joined Microsoft and I came back, I joined on December 2nd. And so about a week after I joined, everybody went on vacation. And I didn't have any vacation balance. So what I did is I went into a bunch of team sites that I've been invited to, and I just read back through what everybody's been talking about for the last 6 months. And I learned tons about my job and found all these resources that actually inspired STAART for Teams. So it's like, there's all this stuff. And I thought, oh my God, there's all this stuff. They're never going to be able to consume all this stuff. How are we going to simplify this? And then the last thing is around employee engagement. And that's something really I don't think that we can understate, which is there's a lot of research that's been done, both in the public sector as well as commercial sector, around the difference that an engaged employee makes versus an unengaged employee. And we got bad news. There are not many engaged employees. An engaged employee, one, they like their job, they're going to stay in their job. They tell their friends about the job that they like, that they're going to stay in, and get their friends to come. And people don't invite people to work with them that they don't like. And so if you like this person, they're going to invite other people they like. Chances are those are going to be good people. They perform, let's see, so globally, employee engagement is 15%. It's actually less in public sector. But at the best performing organizations, 70% of employees are engaged and 87% less likely to leave the organization. So if we can get people engaged, especially this 50% of people that are eligible for retirement, and keep them engaged a little bit, and maybe even, we did a presentation, Merritt, who works with Teresa, around employee engagement, and like, how do you engage employees? It was really good. It's recorded. It's on YouTube. Max was there. And one of the speakers we had come was a lady named Janice Omedeki. She's the CEO of a company called The Mentor Method. She's this absolutely incredible millennial, and she worked for Deloitte, and she found that when organizations create mentoring relationships, it isn't based on any sort of algorithms or anything like that. It's like, well, you work with Bob, and Bob's been here a long time, so work with Bob as your mentor. Well, so she created a thing that actually uses science and technology and data science to match up people. And what they found was that when people are in engaging relationships, the about to retire workforce, the silver tsunami, this tidal wave of retirement that's coming towards us, they actually really like helping younger people and teaching younger people about what they do and how they do it. And so if we can put in a system that captures some of that, then we can be a lot better off than just people leaving, taking the information with them. And so that's sort of like the why behind, why should we do this? And the big thing is that Teams is the toolbox to provide a modern experience. It's not necessarily just that you just roll out Teams. It's not that Teams solves the problem, it's the platform that solves the problem. And so that's why it's really important to figure out how would you use it and what would you do with it, and really use the full features, not just roll it out and say good luck with that. So what we did in this STAART for Teams is we put together a methodology for adopting Teams. Now, if you're not in IT or you're not a project manager, this part may be sort of like, okay. If you are, then this is a methodology that has been put together over hundreds of engagements, best practices. We work with partners to do this. Tim Cohn from Catapult Systems is in the room. We work closely with Catapult Systems with their methodologies and what they've seen successful. Microsoft across hundreds of engagements, actually thousands of engagements worldwide, both in the commercial sector and the public sector. And what we found is there's really common set of stages that every project goes through. First is discovery, really interviewing people and understand what we're trying to do, understand some of the vision and what we need to do before we start the project, and really understanding some of the vision about are the possible of what we're going to do. And then going through an envisioning phase and doing workshops with business decision makers, overviews of what does all this stuff do. So until you really understand the full capabilities and you see somebody using it fully, sometimes it's really even hard to conceive of what's possible, because you think of Teams as a Skype replacement, a chat replacement. Yes, sir.
They lost the presentation on my.
No,
I cannot
really.
see the presentation.
Thank you very much for letting me know. I'm going to fix that. Sorry about that online.
Sorry, no.
Okay, there we go. Stop sharing. Are you chatting with somebody there? Can you ask them if it's back?
Well, I lost it and then people started putting
Oh,
it, so.
excellent.
I think it was me, but then people said.
Thank you. It's back. All right. Thanks, community. So we're gonna have this framework for y'all where we go through these series of workshops. And some of these workshops, as I said, these are not IT workshops. This isn't about the what and the how. This is the why, and really discovering that. And then we're going to go into this validate and define phase. So there's really important things with governance. It's like, okay, certain things you shouldn't keep around for very long. Other things like document types, you need to keep around forever, like contracts, or maybe like 7 years. And I mean 7 years and only 7 years, because if somebody does an e-discovery with a lawsuit, we want that stuff gone if it's supposed to be gone, or otherwise we got to go find it. I had a customer one time in Louisiana, this is 15 years ago. They had a backup tape. And on that backup tape was a backup of Exchange 5.5. And it had potentially documents on it. The lawyers found out they had this backup tape. And the reason I knew that they had the backup tape was because they called me and said, can you get us the install medium to install NT4 and Exchange 5.5 so we can restore this darn backup so that we can figure out if there's any documents in the old Exchange server that they need for the lawsuit? I'm just like, wow. Bet you really wish you got rid of that backup tape. Yeah. So governance is really important. Now it can slow things down, and it can be just a quagmire about retention schedules and things along that line. But if you take somebody through a structured, guided process, yes, it may need more than just a workshop, or maybe a whole governance committee and a retention and policies and all that kind of stuff. But you can't avoid that. But we can at least do the governance workshop if you know what the policies are that need to be implemented or codified or set up, then you can do that workshop, you can implement. If you don't know, then you can at least give some ideas about what to look out for. Meetings, workshops. So this is teaching people how to use the tool, thank you for, hey, are you still sharing the screen? How do you run a meeting? How do you use the tools properly? How do you use a background blur so that people can't see your kids around behind you? So many funny examples of people coming in on the middle of video conference calls. Don't let that happen to you. It has this cool feature, blur, and nothing behind you. Now, actually, I was on the phone with Pamela the other day. One of my buddies, we used to work together 20 years ago at Microsoft, Michael Riley. He kind of looks like me. We were both kind of a little bit older, both have silver hair, both have dark eyebrows. He walks up behind me when I'm on the phone with Pamela, and he's like, hey, what's that camera? Looking at this super cool Panacash 180-degree camera. And I'm like, which is the universal symbol for I'm on the phone. But of course, he's in video at this point. And so I was like, just lean in here. And so he's like, hi, I said, I'm talking to Health and Human Services Commission. You know, they're the largest state agency in the United States. Yeah, you just like basically photobombed my video conference with HHSC. Hi, sorry. So you can't help that, but you know, try that. So how do you run a proper meetings workshop? How do you do a Teams live event? So you can do events up to about 250 people. We're kind of at the threshold on this one. You can do events up to 10,000 people. Actually, using some technologies, you can actually do meetings up to 100, 200,000 people at a time. So if you have a commissioner or someone in your organization that wants to do town hall meetings or do one to everybody or anything along that line, or do quarterly broadcasts across a really distributed network, that's all possible. But you got to know how to do that. You got to know what the scenarios are. And then looking at custom scenarios. We got the pleasure of, is anybody, I know on the phone someone from OAG. Are you from OAG? No. Okay. So we worked with a group called the Public Finance Division at the Office of the Attorney General a few years ago. This is actually before Teams. And it's some really sharp attorneys, young group of people wanted to leverage technology. The word perfect for document editing, and which is what attorneys tend to do, right? I know that look, exactly, it says it all. So they wanted a more modern experience. And so we did that, took through the process, looking at like, how would you work on it? Like if it was optimized, if we wrote an article about this project 2 months from now, what would the headline be? What would some of the bullets be about the things that you were able to do now that you had a modern experience? And so, and we created a modern experience for them and just completely revolutionized the way that they work. Did the same thing years ago for a group called the Texas State Library and Archive Commission. They had a grants management system. It was an old, clunky, bad system that, now I know none of you do this, but they would actually export stuff from the system into a spreadsheet, and then they would munge the numbers, and then they would put it back into the system. Nobody ever does that, right? Yes, lots of organizations do that. And so built a custom solution for them with some workflows and some things in it, and they were able to manage 9 times the number. It was a grant management system. They were able to manage 9 times the number of grants with the same staff as they were able to do before. That meant the libraries could have 9 times as much money, federal money and all different kinds of monies, to do more programs for their constituents, for the kids. And so it's like, how cool is that? So creating custom solutions is sometimes what teams can do. There's like a special need, just like a workflow, something simple things. But there can be custom built, and then the last thing is prioritizing them. Because just because you could do something doesn't mean you should do something first. And what should we do first, and when should we do it, and all those kinds of things. And so really helping your agency understand what's the low-hanging fruit, and then what are the, like, this would really be transformational, but man, that's super hard. That's like replacing the PBX systems and integrating to the call center and stuff like that, 360-degree view of the customer, some of these buzzy things. Okay, that's hard. That's what we should aspire to, and let's do that over a 2-year period. Well, let's not try to take that on first. Let's get this thing out and get people more effective. And then lastly is really creating summary success plans, a roadmap. So you really create 2 roadmaps, and we did this with TRS. You create a user journey map, which is where are we going to take the users and what's the experience we're going to provide for them using the technology, and then how are we going to overlay that to our friends in IT with their roadmap and what they're able to handle and what the help desk is able to handle, so that we don't get out over our skis and provide a bad experience where people have a bad experience with the technology and then they think, oh, that stinks, it's no good, or something along that line, or they just start doing stuff that IT is not ready for, and we create a problem. And so this bringing these 2 things together is critical, and then go into onboarding. And so onboard the scenarios, onboard the governance, onboard the security and everything around security, onboard meetings and give people the ability to use Teams for meetings and collaborate if there are custom solutions to that, and then onboard the support services for the ongoing support. So This is kind of really the meat of STAART for Teams. Now, these workshops are available through Premier, or I'm sorry, we used to call it Premier, Unified Support Contract. So a lot of agencies already have access to some of these workshops. There are partners that can deliver this. They're like STAART certified partners, and it's not really a STAART certified, but they have all the credentials to do all this. And I've been visiting with agencies about this over the last month. And when I show them this 5 weeks, it's like, you can do this in 5 weeks? You can do this planning in 5 weeks? If you can do this in 5 weeks, I'm in. Like, when can we get started? And then they say, well, how long, like, is it really 5 weeks? And I'm like, okay, you can do it in 5 weeks, or you can do it in 2 years, these workshops. Because 5 weeks, this isn't 5 times 40 hours a week. This isn't 200 hours of work. This is a series of workshops over a 5-week period that takes a lot of coordination and meeting rooms and getting the right people in. And you have to make sure that this person is in this meeting. It's mission critical. If they can't make the meeting, we cancel the meeting. So there's a lot of coordination. So it takes 5 weeks, but it's not 5 times 40, if that makes sense. So it doesn't have to take a super long time to get Teams rolled out, and to get it rolled out really right with communication to end users and training for end users. But it takes a little coordination, a lot of coordination. Okay, so that's STAART. That's the way we run STAART for Teams projects. And again, this process, this methodology has been developed over hundreds and hundreds of engagements. So be the beneficiary of this. And my job is to help you guys get to this. So next thing, here we go. So when we worked with Teacher Retirement System, they were one of the most mature agencies that I ever worked with, and no offense to the other agencies, but I worked with a lot of agencies. And with regard to organizational change management, OCM, and adoption change management, ACM, and they had a culture of adoption, culture of communication and transformation. And because of that, when we went down this road, people were willing to attend the meetings. We had the executive sponsor. There's a lady over at Teacher Retirement System, her name is Sylvia Bell. She's not to be trifled with. So when Sylvia Bell is aligned, when you're aligned to Sylvia Bell, she is the most powerful force in the universe in your favor. If you are not aligned with Sylvia Bell, she is not. I love working with her because we figured out the why and then we worked toward the what and the how of the why. And I think that was one of the reasons it was successful. We also aligned to the senior IT leadership. So Chris Cutler over there, he's a CIO. Frank Williams, who's the CSO, the Chief Security Officer, and their direct reports were all aligned to this common vision of why we were doing this. And so we had the sponsors. So when it got hard and when people got busy, they went to the because we said, you go to me. I'm not being mean on Sylvia, she's amazing. We also created this idea of champions and creating a champions community. Champions they're not superheroes, they kind of are, but they're not IT champions. They are champions inside of your groups, inside of your departments, inside of the different business functions of your agency. And champions are the people that they're like, oh yeah, I'll go to the training. I'm in. Oh yeah, Teams, I want it. I'll be first. Can I be first? That's your champion. And so what you do is you educate the champions, you bring them along, you get their ideas, you keep them part of the process. So when it rolls out, they're not all calling, all your users aren't calling IT or the help desk, the champion is helping them. And so this is something we do that anyway. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're passing out new pins, they're showing them how it works. So that's the way they roll. That's the way they were born. And so this idea of having champions is critical to the success of rolling out any project like this. I think we've all been part of what at Catapult they call technical successful failures. That means at the end of the project, it works, but everybody hates it or nobody uses it or it just sits there. And so we're spending all this money, it just sits there. So we want to make sure we don't have a technically successful failure, and sponsors and championships and leaders are all part of that. Now, almost all IT projects run the communications and learning, or a lot of them do. You have some communications about it and some sort of learning around it. And this is critical, absolutely critical. But that stuff over there has to be there. And then over here, and if anybody is ProSci certified in here, ProSci is a methodology of adoption and organizational change management, ADCAR methodology, resistance, anticipating that we know there's going to be resistance. And we are going to proactively identify, measure, and counteract resistance. Now, this doesn't mean we're going to beat up Jim, who always says no. It means we're going to understand where people are going to be coming from, what are the problems. Oh, we can't do that because, well, we thought of that, okay, and here's why, and okay, tell me, is there more that we can't do that because? So this is a critical part of it. And then the last part, this, not really the last part, there's one more, but monitoring. Another thing that I'll give Teacher Retirement System a lot of credit, and again, we did this big project and it was just incredibly successful, so I pick on them a lot. And they're also willing to get up on stage and speak and talk to other people about it, so. What's that saying? You can't, something you measure and you anybody?
Things that don't get measured don't get done.
Yeah. So being able to measure what you're going to do and be able to objectively measure, not like I feel like people are using Teams, but instead 891 people use Teams today to start a meeting or to do a chat or any of these given functions. Have a level of granularity that is available to you of, are people using it? How are they using it? We did a internal marketing campaign to this department. Are they adopting it? Are we seeing an continuing upward trend of usage, or do we see a spike after the training and then it's in the dumper? So what happened? So let's go in there and let's figure out what happened and let's get them using it again. Because it really only works if people get involved and they start using it and they use it right. And so there are a lot of capabilities that are right out of the box with Office 365 that almost nobody knows about. There's this thing called the Office 365 Adoption Pack. It's a series of reports in the O365 Administrator Console. If I was just speaking Greek to you, it's okay. Someone in your organization knows what I'm talking about. But there's these reports, and then you can use those reports and enhance them and make some really cool, beautiful dashboards like Teacher Retirement System did about this is what people are doing. By department, this is what people are doing. Now, we don't have to get down to the Mr. Creepy individual level. Like, hey, Jim, hey, Mike, I noticed you uploaded 5 files to OneDrive yesterday. How's that going for you? That's creepy, okay? This department is using it. You know, that's appropriate level of oversight. And then lastly, and this is just something that's kind of fun. I brought this up with one agency, and they were like, oh, we don't have budget for stuff, and you can't give us tchotchkes because that's against the law. And so I was like, no, it's they could be like little things. And one of my coworkers came up with badges. And so I've been listening to Audible since 2002. I've got like 197 audiobooks, and I mean I'm like this lifetime learner thing and all this kind of stuff. And I get a little thing that spins on my Apple Watch when I listen to the 400th book or whatever. So it's more that concept, like, hey, you did your first meeting, you did. You attended a live event, whatever the case might be. And so he came up with these cool little things that I think we're going to try to make into stickers, and they're going to be so cheap that, like, I'm just going to lay them on the table, and if you want some, you can take them. But, like, cool stuff, like you see people with stickers on their, now, y'all have asset category stickers on your laptops because it's HHSC. But like this is a brand new laptop, so I haven't gotten any cool stickers yet, but I'm gonna have some fun stickers on the back of here. But like having some, having a little like this little cool bragging rights, look cool. So there can be a whole gamification that's part of something like Teams, and it can be a lot of fun. And so it's not to make people feel bad or anything else. It's just kind of cool. Yeah. And if that's not the way y'all roll, then that's fine. Let me do a time check on myself. Okay. So. The other thing, and I talked about this, you should be visual of this. This is like that prioritization. And so on this axis over here is business impact and visibility. Over here is difficulty, people, and process. And so we look at all of the organizational goals and all the different things that we could do, and then we prioritize those into things that we should do and the order that we should do them in. Like I made that example, integrated voice connectivity to the contact center. Ooh, that'd be so cool. Okay, that's like a gazillion, like moving parts and everything else. So let's not do that first. Let's go over here. Better collaboration through chat-based workspaces. Customer service quickly connect to an expert, find the right answer. I mean, when I've called asking questions for my son, I was super lucky. I got a hold of this lady, and I don't remember having it in my OneNote notes. She knew everything about everything. she'd been at HHSC for like 15, 20 years. And she just walked me through, oh, you signed up for this yet? Do you know about this? Oh, yeah, you can't do that because of this and this and this. But I'm just gonna say her name is Donna. I don't think her name was Donna, but Donna. If everybody that called into your agency could get a hold of Donna and talk to Donna, like, wow, how cool would that be? But maybe there's only one Donna. So, but if Donna started you could ask questions to Donna and you could accumulate like a question and answer, then there's actually this really cool thing called a chat bot. It's easy, okay, easy for me to say, right? Easy to do, it's not hard to incorporate into Teams, and you ask Teams a question and it gives you the answer. Like, I have a child who is 18 and is gonna be aging out of the school system. What are that child's options? Here's a list, here's links, send this to your customer. That kind of stuff is so addressable and has been done all over the world. Police departments are using it. Health services companies are using it. So it's just incredible. This stuff is available. And so we'll look at all the things we could do and prioritize which ones we should do, and then roll out things so that we start getting early successes and we get some momentum behind it. And that's kind of the idea again behind this community. And we're gonna talk later about what's next, but let's get the basics in, let's get the base platform working, and then let's move on to some really cool stuff, but do it as a community together. And so an idea behind this bot thing, this chat bot, the code's already available. It works out of the box. You just in other words, you don't have to do a massive project. You implement the code, you put the frequently asked questions, put this file there, and it just does it. So let's have one of our community meetings about that. Bring your IT people, bring your business people. We'll talk about it, share some cool examples of other agencies that have done it all over the world, and then we'll break out. We'll have IT people in one room and the business people in another room. We'll brainstorm, and then you guys can go back and let's get her done. Let's do something super cool. So that's the idea also, the vision that I have for what we can do together. So a big part of this is training. And over the last 2 months in meeting with agencies, and Pamela and I get to meet once a week, and HHSC, they're huge. They have 200 something locations and 40,000 people, and like so many programs and projects and stuff. It's crazy. And so it's really important that we help train up their end users. And every agency, it's important that we train up end users, but we've been talking about how are we going to train? What are we going to do? And so we pulled together some resources that are available they're not free, they're included with your subscriptions. And there is one that's free. And so let's talk about that one first. And so we have friends that are here with the Microsoft Store.
Hi all.
So why don't you come on up? And so the Microsoft Store, if you don't know it, Austin has a Microsoft Store. I remember when it opened, it was like, I've been drinking the Microsoft Kool-Aid so long, it's just like, if I bled, it would come out the color of Microsoft. When I went there, it was because I hate the Apple. I love the Apple Store. It's so cool. But going into the Microsoft Store, I was like, man, this is even cooler than the Apple Store. At least I thought so. Of course, my family is like, God, you're such a geek. But we have a Microsoft Store, and they have all these services, and part of that is training. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. My name is Sandra Hernandez. I have been with Microsoft for 7 years, working out of the Microsoft Store at the domain. So if you have not come by, we'd love to have you. We do all sorts of things, but we recently started partnering with our CSM partners and in doing end user training for your departments. So once you do the deployment, you get through all that stuff. Here we are. All right, so we do what's called customer success training. Typically, these are going to be classroom style learnings. We actually do not use PowerPoints, it's all hands-on. So when we go out to do these trainings, we have your end users bring their device. We hope they bring their device. We typically ask to be added to your demo tenant. If that's not possible, we can get a demo tenant ourselves, and we hand drive the entire interaction. So we do demos, we do conferencing, we'll do real chat collaboration. So we make it really fun. We want to make it appealing for your end users, right? So these are some of our trainings that we currently offer. We hope to grow those. But if you are interested, I know I've plugged in with a few of you guys already, get with Michael. We could definitely make it happen. End user training is what we specialize in. And yeah. And then one more slide. I want to, this is more for You guys have kiddos. I know we have some EDU time in the building, but we do also offer coding camps, STEM workshops, gaming events. So if you're an avid gamer outside of your job, you're welcome to come in. We do also esports gaming leagues and events in store. So we are not just tailored to enterprise, but we also do a little bit of community impacting.
What does the team's training cost?
Nothing. It is free. That's right.
That's the one thing that's free.
But you know,
It's actually not included with your
It's actually
shipping.
not
It's free.
included in what you guys purchase. This
Yes.
is
Oh.
separate. Yes.
How long is it? 3 days or 5 days?
So we do all that planning in our discovery calls. So I'll give you an example. We're currently working with the city of Austin, and they were really interested in getting their teams using Teams, right? And it's a huge organization, a lot of departments. So what we're doing with them is we're doing a bi-weekly training every Tuesday, every Thursday at their training facilities, and we're doing 4 sessions a day. And we just open it up for any department to sign up, and we go out there and we meet their end users and we train them. So it's kind of a vague explanation to the question, but we're open for anything. Right now, you basically plug in with him, he'll plug in with me, we'll work out a discovery call, and then we'll work out the scheduling from there. But it is free. We just ask that if you are interested in this, that you reach out to us sooner rather than later, because our calendar fills up because it is free. So, yeah. Any other questions for us? I know I've got Paul and Adrian. I wanted to introduce them as well.
Yeah, so I'll introduce myself real quick too. So I am Paul Rodriguez, I'm the business sales specialist, and I've got Adrian Gutierrez here with me as well. And we work on the device side. So one of the things you talked about today was Teams. On the software side, then we also believe that devices will help make Teams integration that much easier, right? Because anytime that somebody can walk up to a board like this is, by the way, what we call the Service Hub 2. Anytime that somebody can use Teams in a very user-friendly method, they're more likely to adopt it, right? And so this is an example of something that Microsoft has come out with this past year. It has Teams integration, and it makes the collaboration something you can do pretty much anywhere. So you don't necessarily have to have traditional style conference rooms where it's hung on the wall. You can have something like this where you can actually put it on an easel, and this actually has something that we can actually put a battery in here and unplug it and walk around with it and move it to another space and continue to have that collaboration, right?
Is that able to integrate into the meeting, or I know we were having some challenges earlier with that?
Yeah, so this
I
is,
logged in myself so you can add me to it.
yeah, we're trying to get the logins to come out, but I think it's because of our tenants that we have set up. We're not actually able to log that in directly. We can try to do that again. But the advantage is you can actually step up to the board, be able to do that collaboration. It uses Windows 10 Teams version as well. But and that's kind of the ease. You want to have devices and make it easy and intuitive for you to do that. And so my role at the Microsoft Store is that we're a direct partner for you. We are on Texas BIR. All the entire service lineup is on Texas BIR. That you need to use in order to do purchasing and to try to integrate this. We have great devices that run Teams in the best possible manner, then we have the ability to do that. And so we're a direct partner for you at the Microsoft Store. And I don't think she mentioned, and I don't know where everybody's located for those who are remote users, but we've got 3 stores in the Houston area. There's a store in San Antonio.
2 in Dallas.
We have 1 here and 2 in the Dallas area as well. All of us are do the exact same thing when we do trainings for customers in the team space, and we have the ability to do all these sales through Texas BIR as well. So that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting us.
I was talking to a person who is a Surface specialist, and I think they're cool, and they got the Microsoft logo on them, not the Apple logo. So when I go to a coffee shop, I love sporting my non-Apple logo when I'm sitting on the comfy couch drinking my coffee. But I asked him, I said, okay, look, I know it's a Microsoft device, so that's good. I said, but besides that, why? Okay, what's the big deal? And he said, well, I'm glad you asked. Mention that, right? Specialist, I'm glad you asked. And so he said, well, it's the hardware that comes along with it. And there's consumer hardware that you can get at the store, just go buy for yourself. And that's super cool. But there is the business class Surface family, and there's the business class Dell family and Compact family also. These have special chips in them to make them more secure. The cameras that are in these are a more high definition camera. The microphones are what they call a studio quality microphone, so that you turn one of these things on, join a Teams meeting with it, have it sitting on the desk. Everybody in the room can hear you clearly. It doesn't do the feedback. Every once in a while you get a less expensive laptop and it'll have a feedback loop between the microphone and the speakers. It's designed not to do that. So he told me all this stuff. And so I was like, oh, wow, I had no idea. I just thought it was cool. Joy.
I think we have additional questions online about how to follow up on that, who to ask. Can you include that in the follow-up information? That
Yes, I
we
will.
send out?
Yeah, thank you, Joy. But what we'll do is we have some here. We'll have a PDF that's a follow-up. And Joy, thank you for asking that. There's just one me. And believe it or not, I hate email. And so I love Teams communication because it's like these chats, and I get a little red dot and I don't get these nested emails and the reply to alls and all that kind of stuff. So, and Pamela's already experienced this. If you send me an email, I'm really going to try to get to it, or I'm really going to try to not miss it. But I've got to figure out a way that's going to scale. If 200 people today send me an email tonight and ask me a question, the next month of my life would just be answering those emails, answering those questions. And so part of my commitment to this community is that we're going to have a way, it'll most likely be Teams. We just got to figure out from a scale standpoint, it may get to the point, do we actually want to use an alternate technology to have the data sheets and the instructions and, hey, here's the PowerPoint or the video from the last session that we had. So my commitment to the community is that we're going to make that self-service and easier so that you don't have to email me, because I'll be a bottleneck. And then if I do that, then it means I won't be out meeting with you and talking to you and understanding your scenarios and helping bring resources to you. I'll be sitting at my desk with email. And I don't want that, and I think it's less value to the organization. Is there a question online? I feel like it. Okay.
On today's call that we're all on, so at least the people that are digitally joining us have a copy of it as well, and my contact information as well as the store. So if they want to reach out to us as well, then I'll plug back in with Michael for scheduling, so that it takes a little bit of the backlog for you. So
Yeah. I'm really good like one-on-one, but man, sitting and cranking through emails. My wife is a company founder and CEO. She's amazing the amount of email she can go through. I'm really not good at it. So
Yeah, I'll throw that up there for the digital folks, and I'll put in our contact information.
Yeah, and what's great about, I think, the role that we play as well is we have a tendency to be concierge for a number of things, right? So for me, it's a device side. So whether it be Surface or whether it be other partners like Dell, HP, whatnot, we work to make sure that those devices have all the security and all the needs and features that you need. So,
yeah. And there really is, if you go into the store, you can see the stuff, but Paul can help you get the business version of all of that. And so the Microsoft Store is invested in Paul and his team that are business specialists to work with business, and they understand the DIR contracts and all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
Thank you for having us.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
We'll be back there if you guys have any offline stuff.
So there's a couple of other training that is included with your subscription. Pamela showed me this, and then I did a little digging on it, and Moore, that works for Health and Human Services, who's their intranet specialist. He sent me some links to this. So M365 Learning Pathways site, it's available for download, and your SharePoint person can install it into your SharePoint environment, and it has training that's available in it. And the administrator of it can say, okay, under Microsoft 365 training, if you click on that, let's just say they don't want to roll out Excel for some reason. Well, they can uncheck Excel, but maybe they want to roll out Excel, but they want to have some of the training that's available behind there that's created and managed and monitored and updated by Microsoft as new features come out. You only want to turn on 3 of the 7 trainings. And these are videos, there's documents, there's all kinds of resources in there. The IT or your learning coordinator, Janelle, whoever the case might be, can turn that off. Now, I'm going back to teacher retirement system again. They did, because they got this whole teacher thing going, they have their training center is called Study Hall. Love it. And they're really good at branding. And actually, Teresa's in charge of user experience at Teacher Retirement System. And so she provides this amazing user experience on their intranet and through their teams and on their internet site. And so they have this thing called Study Hall, and they have all this great content they've created. Like this recording that we're doing today, your training department can use Teams to do trainings and record those for other people to attend that couldn't attend it, or create trainings just like by themselves and then save those and make them available through the Learning Center. So this is a platform that you can use that runs in SharePoint Online, that runs in your tenant, but the content is managed by Microsoft, but you can add your own too. Kind of cool. It's included. There is also, most of you have a unified support contract. It used to be called Premier. If you've been around for a while, you might be thinking of it as Premier. One of our TAMs is in the room. You want to introduce yourself?
I'll come up. So, my name is Craig Milliken. I am a new TAM, free agent, so super senior, but I've been on state and local government accounts, do not know which accounts I'm getting yet outside of DIR. But as I figured I'd come crash this training and learn what I could. So I've been with Microsoft for 6 years, not new to Microsoft, just this role's new one for me. So,
Yeah. And so through a unified support contract, you're going to have someone that's your TAM, and the TAM has all these resources, this technical support resources, ongoing support if you're having a problem, something's not working the way it's supposed to, or it's not working like it's supposed to in your environment. And so you have a TAM that you can ask questions to, and they have this cool thing called the Learning Campus, and inside of the portal that they have available to them, there's all these training modules. There's learning pathways, which are like this sort of, like you start here and you learn this stuff, and you know, let's say you want to become a, thank you so much, you want to become a database administrator, I'm just making this up. Then there's like all these classes that you can take, and there's, I think, 14 classes for teams that are inside of this learning pathways. So there's on-demand videos, there's hands-on labs, like you can actually go into an environment and set up teams. And so really great for training, webcasts, workshops. They also do workshops, as I mentioned before. STAART for Teams has workshops that can be delivered by Microsoft certified partners, or you can work with your unified support contract to use the same type of workshops through that support contract. One last resource. Now, this is not included with your subscription, but it's really, really good. You may know Microsoft bought LinkedIn. LinkedIn bought this thing called Lynda and renamed it LinkedIn Learning. Yeah. So Lynda had tons of content, and there's this really cool guy. His name is Sean, S-E-A-N, Galvin, and he is the account executive for the state of Texas and for the in public sector for the state agencies. And so LinkedIn Learning has tons of content created to make content. Honest to frustrating point for some agencies is, okay, all they're talking about is the commercial sector version of Teams, and if you haven't experienced this yet, the government version in this thing they call the GCC, Government Community Cloud, does not have the same features. It's missing some that the commercial sector does, because it has to go through these government certification process. It's just a process. It's a stamp, but it takes some time. And so one of the things that Sean is committed to, and also that you can get through your TAMs, is training that is specific to GCC, Government Community Cloud. And so making sure your users aren't getting all excited about how they're going to use this great feature that they don't have available to them because you're in the Government Community Cloud. So LinkedIn Learning, if you're interested in this, then I can connect you with Sean. But yet it is an additional fee. If you're looking at buying content or you're looking at training systems, my understanding, again, I don't sell this, I don't get compensated at all. I just hope you guys get good learning. It's a lot less expensive than the big LMS system, and it has all this content already, and they make the content. And so there's a version where you can upload your own content. And so you can have all their content and your specific content, maybe for your specific business groups. And so it's not, if you're in training, it is not a SCORM compliant learning management system. So SCORM is this standard for packages of content, and if it's SCORM compliant, you can load it into your LMS and it does certain things and it works a certain way. Just said everything I know about that. Super impressive, right? So it's not a SCORM compliant LMS, but it has a lot of stuff and it's supposed to be really good. For LinkedIn Learning. All right. We're at 4:06. Promise that we're going to get you out of here on time or early. Question is, what else are you guys interested in learning about? Yes, sir.
As we one of the new things we're dealing with is customers are asking about Yammer, here Yammer, and so we're trying to adopt Teams, and then they're using us with Yammer. So how do we approach those questions.
Yeah, that's, one of the things is, there's this great article that was written called What to Use When, and it's confusing if you just turned all this stuff on and you didn't interview business users and didn't understand their needs and you just turned on all these capabilities, then just said, go forth and prosper. Yammer's great for communicating out to an audience, and it can have some social feed characteristics.
Plus
It
now
is-
they've integrated with SharePoint, and we're gonna see a lot more of that where there's, it's being integrated.
Yeah, and it's a really cool, kind of like a feed on like an intranet homepage. It's really good for that. You can create communities of interest with it. It is not a substitute for Teams.
It's
It is
a
also-
distraction for us, right?
It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be. Yammer also, because it was an acquired company, it is not stored in a government data center. And so for government clients, oftentimes you can't use Yammer because it doesn't meet the criteria, especially if you have criminal justice information system, CJIS data, or IRS 1075 data. It's an absolute no-no.
FERC SIP as well.
FERC SIP.
From our other folks.
Yeah, so if you're nuclear or any of that kind of NERC and FERC and all that kind of stuff. So if you're highly regulated, it's not for you, in most likely. Not sure what to do about that, okay. So I can help you get some access to information on Yammer and how you might think about that, and do some workshops and strategy sessions around Yammer, and because it can be a very, very powerful tool for your marketing group and your communications group in 2 or 3, but in a sort of social media style.
Right now, we're just pushing it back.
Yeah.
There has to be that.
Yeah. So I know you're in the education space. If you'll get with me afterwards, I'll give you the name of somebody that's in the education space and they can connect with you. Yeah. So I really am interested. I have a couple of topics that I think would be cool to talk about Teams, but yes, sir, Bob.
I'd like to see a demo, maybe the TRS system, if it's possible to do so with, decertified data or something, just kind of flow, just kind of look and feel.
Yeah, and so they've been super generous in the past to get them on stage. We did this connected employees or employee engagement session. There's actually a video of Merritt Schrader, who works with TRS and works with Teresa, and her video is online. And so I could send out a link to that. So it's already been recorded. However, maybe we could set something up in the future where they could show like their study hall and some of their reports and some of the different stuff. I don't want to commit them, but yeah. Right. So, seeing what it looks like when someone has really rolled it out and understanding the process they went through is really powerful, because you can, one, not trip on that first set of problems that they already tripped on, and it just sort of go to that next level. And I used to windsurf a long time ago, and I remember the first time I saw somebody go on a wave and do a flip on a windsurfer. Well, that wasn't possible, but then it was. You know what I mean? And so like the 4-minute mile, it's not possible until it is. And so like you can't even envision like what we could do with that, and what would it be like if everybody was using this until you really see it. And so they'd be a great example of that. So all right, Teresa's nodding her head, so they're in.
I'd like to talk about smaller agencies and driving adoption.
Awesome.
It's hard to get 25 people to see the benefit of Teams when we're all 5 feet from each other.
Yeah, I literally was talking to somebody at the OIG the other day, and they said, like, I can see everybody on my team, like right now. And so it's like being in Seattle and you can see 4 Starbucks at one time. And so we'll talk about that. And like, what's the why? Like, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just go, hey, Jennifer, blah, blah, blah. So what's the benefit, not only today, but in the future for using Teams? And we can certainly talk about that. And since you're not 1,000 people, it doesn't have the same scale requirements, so maybe some of the same settings requirements, but it still requires a level of security and governance because you are a public agency and you may have stuff that you don't want on the cover of the Statesman. And so, but you also don't have a mega IT budget to do some huge implementation. So part of what we're working on with STAART for Teams is a small, medium, and large version. The large is really custom because it's for the largest agencies. The medium is your 500 to 4,000 sort of, and I know that feels like large, but when compared to HHSC, 4,000 doesn't seem that large. And then but something for small where it's really like, this is sort of like the default config, and I'm working with partners right now to come up with that sort of like, here you go. If you want any customization, we can do that, but we can set up for you super quick right out of the box. Yeah, Tim.
Michael, I was just talking with a very small group in the Texas Council on the Prevention of Family Violence, right? They have a small group, but they do a really complex job. And so sometimes getting to the why really just gets into looking at your mission and your vision of where you want to go. And there's some great things that teams can do for that organization to help them. They produce a document for the legislature every year, and it's a big job. And it takes coordination where they bring in information from lots of agencies. And so it's Teams is a great place to do that.
I was visiting with a CIO about 6 months ago at the TASK conference, and he said, Michael, honestly, I know all of our people are excited about Teams. It's like I didn't get it. It's like, it just, like you said, it's like people that report to me, they come to my office, we have meetings, or we go to these meetings, and it's like, okay, I got the information I need. And then he and the chief security officer were in 2 different cities at 2 different conferences, and there was a board of directors meeting that was coming up. So their legislative, not the legislative board, but their board, and they needed to write a document for that meeting, like in 2 days. And the old way would have been file shares and, hey, let me know when you're done, or emailing it back and forth. And so what they did instead is they were like, hey, well, let's use Teams. And so they started this team site, and then they co-authored on this document. And literally they were both writing the document at the same time. And, hey, check out this section. And they were on video and they were on voice. And they said they wrote that document in a shorter amount of time into more completeness than they could have if they'd been sitting in the same room together, because they literally were working on it at the same time. And then they were like, now I get it. So for them, that was the killer scenario. But the killer scenario is different for different groups. Yeah. Someone else, Max, did you have your hand up?
I did.
Yeah.
This idea of a chat bot is mind blowing to me, and I need to know more about it.
Okay.
And is it, I'm assuming it's something that could be used internally as well, the chat bot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's internal certainly is a very addressable scenario. There can be external scenarios for sure, but then you start getting into.
Yeah, a lot of like some of our staff's #1 complaint is the just the difficulty and the amount of work it takes to find policy references when they're stuck in a certain situation. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is I'm call center based, is they get on our supervisor queue, and that clogs up the supervisor queue with questions that are just policy based that they could simply, if they spent a little bit more time looking through the handbook, they could find the answer. Yeah. But they don't want to do that because it's so arduous. Yes. So a chatbot would be a really cool tool to help clear out the supervisor queue, but make it easier for them to find the specific policy that they need with the scenario.
Yeah, that's super cool.
That would be really cool.
I saw an example. It was there was a police force, and so what they did is they used Teams. They rolled out Teams, and so when crime scene investigators were going out, it was like a workflow, and it would prompt them through and say, so and the scenario they gave was they asked, is there a computer at the scene? And they're like, yep. Actually, what they did is here's what it was even cooler. They uploaded pictures from the crime scene, and they used the image AI, artificial intelligence, and it said, I think there's a computer in the picture at the crime scene. Is that a computer? Yes. Are we planning on bringing the computer in as evidence? Yes. You need a special forensics person to go out and do that, or you can really mess it up. And so then it had this series of questions, and then at the end, it sent a ServiceNow request into the queue for the crime scene computer specialist, and gave them the address, and gave them all the information, and gave them the arrest and all the stuff, and basically then they went and did the thing. It was a chatbot, but it understood the business process flow for a crime scene, and they did some cool image AI stuff, but it doesn't have to be that. So yes, we'll absolutely do that because I think it's cool.
Yeah, that would be really.
Yes, sir.
You touched a little bit about it, when you mentioned about on the planning part about creating a charter of teams, before you just go in and create. That's one of our concerns about implementing teams, because when we give Microsoft permission to turn on Office 365 groups in our tenant.
Yes.
I'm being sarcastic when I say we give them permission.
Yes.
We started showing all these groups, soccer dads and guys that go into fishing, it's like, where are these guys coming from? So we want.
Can't relate to that.
So
at
we
all.
want. Yeah, so that's one of the things the reason why we haven't decided to start deploying. Is we wanna have control of that first before we move on. We wanna avoid a clutter, we don't wanna have our gals showing a bunch of teams and people just going crazy with it.
That's right.
Or start creating teams, hey, we're going fishing,
Yeah.
we're Parks and Wildlife, so there's a lot of fishing.
Oh, yeah.
So-
I know George, yeah, so I'll talk about fishing.
Yeah, so we want to avoid that.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I guess, I think, like I said, you mentioned at the beginning, it's part of, of the configuring the management.
Yeah, so if I go back to that slide, yes,
You
Pamela?
can do a demo like you did for us on.
Yeah, I can't do it right
No, no,
now.
no,
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
yes.
for the tools at one of the other meetings, right?
Michael, request from the online folks to repeat the question.
Oh, yes, okay. So the question and really the conversation was about, apologies to the people online, was if we just turn on Teams and we just turn on the ability to create teams, the underside of Teams is this thing called a Microsoft group. And when you create a team called Let's Go Fishing, it creates a Let's Go Fishing at Texas Parks and Wildlife TPWD.texas.gov email address. And it creates this whole infrastructure underneath that. So you need to control the creation of teams and groups and email addresses, and you don't want to take up the email address like hr@tpwd.texas.gov or payroll or something like that, these protected names. You also, George may not want people creating a team site called George Rios, because then all of a sudden there's George Rios, so there's all these reasons why you need to control that. So there's a demo that was done, Catapult did a Teams governance workshop a year ago maybe, and showed a demo of a really easy way to be able to control that creation process and really intercept the creation process, and then take people through a very simple workflow that actually has training videos as part of it, like this is what this means, so that people could create a team site, but also as they're doing that, they make choices from drop downs about naming conventions. It applies naming conventions, applies metadata, applies retention schedules, so that when the team site comes spitting out the other end of the workflow, it followed the naming convention. It looked for words that couldn't be used, like naughty words, or just protected words. It set up a retention schedule. It set up multiple owners so that you don't have one person leave the organization and that team gets abandoned, that team site gets abandoned. So like a lot of stuff that can be done, we can do a demo of that as one of these. Let's see. See if this goes back. All right, cool. Okay, so that is contained here, enhanced by supportive solutions built using the software you already own to enable Teams creation, configuration, and management. That's what we're talking about. So I'm gonna, should call that Teams controls. And that's a great subject, so thank you. Max, anything you're thinking about?
No, I guess one of the things I was thinking about was kind of integration. Like I know that it also creates a SharePoint backend, right? So
Yeah,
there's
SharePoint
more-
document
there's more
library.
you can do right there than just in Teams. There's more opportunities.
Yeah, so maybe understanding the back end about what's happening behind the scenes. One day I was at church and my 5-year-old, got this really, really smart, precocious kid. He pointed at the wall socket and he said, I want to know what's going on. And I was like, what, like with a wall socket, you plug it in? He goes, no, I want to know what's going on behind the wall. I was like, cool. Yeah, okay. So let's get behind the wall and like, what's going on behind the scenes? What is the opportunity that's created by the fact that there is a SharePoint site that's created with a document library, and what can we do with that? And what might we do with SharePoint lists and things like that are behind the scenes. And because it has an email address, you can email files to the team site, which can create all kinds of interesting workflow scenarios or adding content. If you don't have time to upload the thing, you just attach a document and email it to the team site and it goes in there. All kinds of cool stuff. So let's say, let's call it behind the scenes or behind the teams. Let's have fun with that. That's a great idea. I like that. Okay. What else? If there are ideas, can someone look at the chat? Would you look at the chat? You're my chat guy. So if there's some things that are happening, Tim. Yeah.
Oh, I saw a couple. One was around connecting with on-prem SharePoint and other on-prem assets that the agency might have.
Yeah. Okay, so the statement was, you may be able to hear Tim because he's got sort of like the Moses voice and the look. But it's when you have on-premises technologies, how can teams integrate into that and how can we leverage the legacy? So on-prem integration.
Michael, you might review what you've got, the online people can't see that.
I got it.
Okay.
It's on the thing. If you go to the whiteboard tab,
Just need more instructions.
on the actual call that we're all on, if you go to the third tab that says whiteboard, I'm writing down exactly what he's got up there. So you guys can reference it.
Oh,
How do I find that? That's not new back to Microsoft?
Go, remove the business.
you're duplicating his effort, right? It's
Correct.
not, okay.
Yeah.
Because he's not joined on Teams over there. And then if you go to your chat,
Oh, yeah.
or the ellipses, I'm sorry, where the three little dots are, you should pull it up and it'll say meeting notes. There should be a meeting notes. Yep, right there. But you're
I'm looking at it
presenting, so
sideways.
it'll-
Where,
it'll
sorry?
Show meeting notes right there.
Details.
Sure, I'm not seeing it.
That says show meeting
It
details.
says show me details.
Well, yeah, since you're presenting, it may not allow you to do it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, so in the whiteboard, and we're going to send this to you if you're online. So things we have so far, we have, and this is really, I'm going to follow up with you about that for University of Texas system, is Yammer. And then we can send something out and put something together around Yammer. And what is Yammer? How do you use Yammer? Why would you not use Yammer? Teacher retirement system got cornered very so elegantly and nicely to do a demo of kind of how they use Teams. And so show an organization that's broadly adopted Teams and is really has a kind of mature process around education and organizational change management. Smaller agencies. So how do we think about a smaller agency and why would we use Teams when I can see all my teammates and what's the benefit of using Teams versus just talking? Old school. Chatbots and how can we use bots in general to potentially scale out our most expert resources as well as give people access to repositories of information in a more intuitive way than just going and trying to figure it out and find it. Teams controls. Help me remember what we were going to, that was around
365 conventions.
Yeah, okay. So kind of governance and then behind the team, like what's happening behind the scenes with groups and SharePoint Online. And then on-prem integration. So we have this stuff that we have these things that are still running on premises. Maybe we have SharePoint on-prem or something else on-prem. How's the integrate with that? We could also have, I can get you some resources to links to videos about, you got Skype on-prem. How do you think about moving to Teams online if you have Skype on-prem? I don't want to take a whole session for that because it's kind of special, but there's some really great content on that topic. And we have some field engineers that are happy to come and engage with you and work. These are Microsoft, built the product to come and work with you around getting off of Skype and moving to Teams. So.
Are there new user roles that are being integrated, like moderators, if we haven't had chat functions appropriate before?
Yeah, so maybe some stuff around controlling the message. If people put stuff out there, do we need moderators? What are moderator capabilities? How can an organization keep an eye on what's being said and done? And what are maybe some ways we can approach that from a policy standpoint, like appropriate use documents that people have to sign off that says you're gonna get fired if you do this, you have to sign that before you use it, but also, how do you maybe keep an eye on things? Yeah, Tim.
Hey, Michael, I would just suggest, and this goes with your smaller agencies, but in general, teams strategy. When do you do a team? When do you use channels? When do you use tabs? I think, you know, some of the stuff about who can create teams, and when that's governance related, but there's an overall strategy to kind of organizing your teams and what are good naming conventions and all that kind of stuff. That's one that we often talk with a lot of folks.
Can we throw SharePoint into that discussion?
Well, and SharePoint comes along with Teams.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so.
This is a Teams community. SharePoint is a part of Teams, as Tim said. It's the foundation of Teams. SharePoint is so big, it's so vast. Teresa is just an expert on SharePoint. There's another community for that.
I've been to it.
Yeah.
Still going.
Well, and just to add as an FYI for those, there's a lot of new stuff going on from Microsoft there.
Yeah.
With Project Cortex and enterprise content management and AI and all that stuff. Keep an eye on the SharePoint user group in Austin.
Yeah.
But so teams, you know, we're collaborating on documents. The documents we're putting in SharePoint to take advantage of version control and other nice document management features. We need to integrate that into what we're doing with Teams.
So we'll cover that in the behind the team, like what's going on behind the scenes and how can we actually.
And I may be doing it from a SharePoint perspective, kind of tunnel vision on that as opposed to.
Yeah.
On the mechanics of this campaign, and there's no doubt this is, you know, money can buy the best. Let's set that aside. I'm curious about the candidate himself. How did he look? How did he handle the gaggle, for instance, the first time he met the press? A few top lines. Number one, he does not really long. His unlike.
Where they say something they wish they hadn't said in the recording. You're being recorded. Remember the little message at the top says you're being recorded? Hey, so we're at time. I can't thank you enough. Those of you that are online. So my commitment to you is that we recognize this is popular. We're going to try to figure out how many people, was this a fluke that we had this many people, or is this what it's going to be every time? It'd be great if it was. We're going to figure out a way to scale this. Joy and I will also talk about the idea, is once a month in person like this doable? Or would you rather, what we had kind of talked about was we have an in-person, then in 2 months we do just like remotely, and then we do another in person. Is once a month too much? Or do you like getting together in person? Or I see yeses. Once a month, one in person. Okay, we'll schedule that. We will always have the remote option available, but because it's Teams. We'll do it on, and we might do it here. There's decent parking. It's not super far. Everything is far in Austin, but it's not. So I'll work on that. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you for the Microsoft Store being here, our TM community being here. Thanks especially to you guys. Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.